Two people hired start Monday.
Oh,
Okay, oh, wow. She's remembered how.
We're good. Good. Meeting order, regular scheduled meeting of Transportation Policy Committee. Today's date, Thursday, March 22nd at 12:30. Thank you all for being here today. Hopefully we'll enjoy some good weather here real soon. It is the first week of spring. So we'll go ahead and proceed with our regular order of business, and first is the roll call.
Thank you very much. Bullitt County,
Right here.
City of Charlestown,
Here.
right next door. City of Jeffersontown,
Here.
on a roll. City of Jeffersonville, City of New Albany, City of Shively. Hi, Mayor. City of St. Matthews.
Here.
Hi, Bernie. You can hear us okay? Clark County.
Present.
Thank you guys for joining us. Floyd County. Just in time, Nick Creevy, I see you. Hi, Nick. Do we have anyone from NDOT? NDOT Seymour? Okay, we'll go back to St. Matthews. I see Mayor Tonini. Hi, Mayor. Jefferson County League of Cities?
Here.
Kentucky Transportation Cabinet Central Office?
Here, Thomas Witt, and I am not a Cedro. I'm just sitting in for him since he's on vacation.
We have an imposter. I think I see Steve DeWitt. Hi, Steve. Thank you for joining us.
Just double checking, but I'll probably let Thomas handle it.
All right. Louisville Metro? Louisville Regional Airport Authority? That's not a stranger. That's Spencer Williams, even though it didn't look like him. Oldham County? I see Deputy Judge Ender. Hi, Joe. Town of Clarksville. I see Kevin on the phone. Hi, Kevin, if you can hear us. And Tark.
Here. And the team is here.
We got a whole team here today. All right. So let's move on to our advisory members. I know we have a few in the virtual room at least. Federal Highway Administration. I see Lakeisha. Hi, Lakeisha. How are you?
Well, how are you doing? Long time no see.
Yeah, likewise. Good to see you. Do we have, I don't think we have anybody from Federal Highways Kentucky. Miss Sigden, she's out. She let us know she's gonna miss this meeting. She's out of town. Do we have any FTA folks on the line? I don't believe so. How about KYTC District 5?
Matt Bullock here.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Matt. Hi, Tracy. Metro Planning and Design, Brian Davis is not here, and so that, thank you all for joining us. We've got quite a crowd today in the room and online, and we've got a real busy agenda that we'll hope to move through pretty quickly today. So thank you all for joining us.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us, and thank you for those who are online. So we'll proceed right on with our agenda. And the next item number 2, is the approval of the February TPC meeting minutes. Need a motion, if everybody's had a chance to look at them, I'll need a motion to accept those minutes. I have that motion. Motion. A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
You got it? Okay. Are there any other additions or corrections? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying, motion carried, the minutes are approved. Item number 3, this is a public comment period. Do you have that for us, Greg?
Yes, did not receive any public comments prior to the meeting. I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A, but if anything comes up, I'll bring it up in other business.
Thank you, Greg.
Yes, sir.
Next is the public involvement report.
Yeah. We'll get through the numbers. Kind of a short report this month. We'll get through the numbers nonetheless. Let's take a look at our website analytics from, oops, I was supposed to say February, sorry, that's actually February. Saw a good increase in numbers. That was good to see compared to the January numbers. 208 visitors for our main page. Our tip page saw 192 visitors, also up compared to January, and the MTP page stayed steady at 59 visitors. Social media, take a look. We did see a little bit of a drop in social media, not really unexpected due to the fact that we did not have any paid advertising really in the month of February. Did have 9 posts. Facebook still good, solid numbers, 1,503 impressions. Facebook did go through and kind of change their engagements. They don't really offer that anymore. It's now a reach link click thing. So just to kind of explain that real quick, reach kind of refers to the number of people who's viewed the post. So our impressions, that's the folks that are kind of seeing it as they're going through the feeds. Reach, link clicks, that's people that actually went on and looked at the post, clicked into it. And the good thing is that ratio there, 809 to 1503, that's pretty good. That means over half the folks that saw our stuff in our feed clicking on it. So that's good numbers. So that'll change there. You'll see these numbers moving forward, but no longer will have the engagements type of things. Instagram did see a big drop here, and this was a little bit unexpected. 531 impressions, 38 engagements. That's down a little bit, but that's okay. We'll keep working on it, see if we can make it happen. Twitter's still decent numbers there, 2,321 impressions. And social media comments, we did get one that was based off of a post on our Twitter account. Just advertising the TPC meeting from February. It says, even though the voting board of KIPTA is rigged in favor of small cities and counties because the votes are not weighted by population, that's why we see so many projects and money going to rural and suburban projects. Still important to follow what they are doing and comment. Take that what it's worth. That though wraps up my report. If anybody has any questions, I'll take them.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Greg. Appreciate that report. Next up is item number 5. And this is Park. And we're going to introduce to us your draft plans for 2025, correct?
Yes, so today we have 3 good friends of KIPTA here from TARC. Executive Director Ozzie Gibson is here, and then many of you all know Alex Brzezorski, former KIPTA staff who's here, and our TTCC chairperson, Aida Kopik. They're all here, and it sounds like Mr. Gibson's going to give a presentation today, and with Aida and Alex's support. And so, welcome to KIPTA, and floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. You want me to sit here, go to
You can sit
podium?
wherever you want. We'll get you the clicker.
Well, but I hate turning my back to people, so
That work.
Alex, get the whatever the thing is, and I'll sit right here and knock it out. So I'd be remiss if I didn't pass on some information that I do to every group about that it's a national problem. You all already know that, but some of our recent input we just received, City of Pittsburgh Public Transportation is facing $100 million deficit, which would be cutting 40% of their routes, which is 41. Chicago is projected now, and this is all for their FY26, $770 million. Kansas City, $32 million gap. Gonna have to cut 13 of its 29 routes. And even Dallas now is looking at possibly, if they don't come up with state funding, a 50% cut. So, a lot of places I go, I hear what has TARC done wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's a national problem. So I think when I come here last time, we talked about a $30 million financial cliff. And the last time we had 2 plans when we first rolled this out, when I took over. One was going to be a constrained plan, which was a 50% cut for us. The other was going to be an enhanced plan that would require about a $50 million investment. Okay, so we were able to go back with the consultants and come up with, hello, Deputy Mayor George. We were able to come up with, working with consultants, a couple better options for Louisville, at least in the short term. So, one of the plans we came up with is obviously we've worked with JCPS. We've loaned some of our bus drivers over there for them to bring the magnet schools back. I can tell you they brought back, I think March 17th, about 50 routes. Our people are driving 25 of those. I can't name the schools they went back to, but we do have a transportation problem in Jefferson County. So we was able to come back with a map that will actually could incorporate the magnet schools into a new system. And it's a better system than what we're on right now. You know, if you've watched, we've cut service, 2 times. And we went down from about 600,000 hours on the street when I took over down to where we're at now is 400,000 hours. Our ridership still is strong. We've had a couple bad months due to the weather, but when you start looking at like the enhanced plan, when you see the colors up there, red, the blues, the greens, the red is what everybody wants, and that means we come through every 15 minutes. Obviously, the blue is 30. So, the enhanced plan is a step up from what we originally were talking about on a constrained plan. It is something that we can afford, going out on our current budget to about 2030. So we've bought the region more time in this area to figure out what's gonna be best. That would also, there again, go to the magnet schools. So, our consultants, if you was to pull, you have, today's map, kind of should show what it looks like. Okay, that's what we're on right now. So you don't see a lot of red there. You see some blue. You see a lot of gold and green. And the gold is really bad because that's more than an hour and that's not good service. So if you see empty buses, that's probably because of where that's at. So, the green there, again, that's ever 45 to 60. That doesn't help a person that needs a bus. So, we will stay on this going into our FY26 budget. There could be a couple small tweaks this summer, but we're trying to stay consistent and not do anything again until our board chooses a plan. Now, the consultant also did us another favor. Alex, if you pull up, there's another plan that we could go to every high school. All right, so,
That'd take me about 10 seconds to get you.
he's got all these maps, so I'm making a short presentation for you folks today, but we can cover them all, but. All right, so there we are. So you can see that's got a lot more coverage on it, and that would be able to go to every JCPS high school. We've met with JCPS, we've talked to them when we implemented this second phase of this. This would probably require about $8 to $10 million additional funding. But that's still not a bad plan because you can see we're going to a lot more areas in Jefferson County. We still have our service under both of those enhanced plans of going to Indiana. So we would love to get to this point at some time, but the earliest we could go to the first plan, which is the magnet schools, we believe we could go to that next fall. Our board's aware of this. The consultant says that's a way better plan than what we're on now, and it's gonna be better for our riders, and it's actually gonna save us about $8 million more because it's a lot more straight line routes, which now requires less drivers and less buses. So, the other piece of our puzzle always is, I probably didn't talk about last time, is paratransit, which is TARC 3. That's a big piece of all this because that is we're projecting in our FY26 budget, that's gonna cost us $23 million. All right, and there again, just a history of how TARC and everything was born. We were born in 1974 with the occupational tax. The city gets right now, the current occupational tax, about 500 million, JCPS gets 200 million, we get anywhere around 75 to 80 million. And paratransit come along in the early 90s and we got no additional funding. We get a little bit of funding, I don't know, for capital stuff and some buses, maybe 4.5 million from the feds, but the rest of it comes out of what our portion of the occupation tax is. So we're projecting that's going to continue to climb. We do 31,000 scheduled trips a month. That's a lot. You can see there what we're required to do is we're only required to go 3/4 of a mile off per person. But when we start doing research, as I try to compare us to Indy, Cincy, and Nashville, Indy and Cincy, they only do 14,000 trips a month. So we are working very close to them to see what their policies are and what they're doing. Just to give you some knowledge about them, like Indy's budget, I believe, is for their public transportation is about 160 million. Ours is gonna be next year projected 112. So we're way off, and you go up the road to Cincy, it's 147 million is what their budget. They all increased taxes, back in the late, 2018 and 20, and then if you wanna look at what Nashville's at, I think last year's budget for Nashville was 127 million, and I'm sure you're all aware, they just did a new amendment to where they're pumping in 1.5 billion over the next 15 years for paving, sidewalks, public transportation, and streetlights. So a lot of people always tell me, Ozzy, man, you ought to see what they're doing in Indy, Cincy, and Nashville. We don't compare to them right now. I made a joke with somebody the other day, we may have to compare ourselves with E-Town. I don't know. And I'm not knocking E-Town, but I'm just pointing that out where we stack up budget-wise and what the expectation is for TARP to put service on a street. It's very costly now. So, Alex, did I miss anything you want to point out? So I can't thank these two enough. The countless hours that they have put in the last year in our 2025 route redesign, the nights. The last time we did this, they were at 180 some odd meetings. They're gonna do it again because we're into the second phase. The first phase that they did this was to actually help get the community's information to design these maps that we have. This second phase is going back out to the community one last time. What did we miss? You know, have we missed going to a hospital? Have we missed this that we didn't think about? And they're doing that for another 40 days. They put out surveys again. Last time we had well up, was it 3,000 or more?
2,800.
Yeah, from the community. We're asking for that input again. We'll come back and we'll tweak this. Probably bring it back to our board in late May or early June with final product. So to me, it's a no-brainer probably for us, unless something comes out of this, to go to that enhanced plan and be able to get to these magnet schools, because I believe I heard Dr. Polio say publicly that based on what they're projecting retirements, they see issues that could go out another 3 or 5 years. And I think we all deal with construction and stuff. There's a shortage of CDL drivers. So that is kind of what we're doing. I'll ask any question you want. If you got anything I didn't touch on that.
The ridership coverage and sort of the board directed parameters.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of this study was to decide, do you go towards ridership where your riders are, or you go towards coverage, meaning you go out further, which now means more gold that I talked about. So the information that come back from the community in the first report is they want that frequency, the ridership does. So that means you have to condense down a little bit. So our board asked the consultant to design these maps based on the 70% where most of the riders are, and then 30% coverage. So that's what they voted on. So we don't want to lose any riders. Our ridership has remained strong. I think through the summer, we averaged over 500,000 boardings a month. Comparing us to Indy and the budget they had, they were averaging like 600 or 621. Cincy's at like 1.2 million boardings a month is their average, but they do a lot of shuttles for their pro sports teams. So you're going to get a lot of boardings that way. So the other thing our board approved that was part of this was how close stops should be. We have a lot of stops, unfortunately, that are block. And now we're going that it'll be every 3 blocks. That'll be what we're going to move to. And folks may have to walk a little longer, but that's actually going to help our on-time performance by pulling some of those stops out. So, well, if you got something else, you bring it.
I would like to mention a project that this body is familiar with, and TARC very much appreciates support for that. It's Transit Center. What Ozzy was talking about, enhanced network really needs this transit center to function properly. So we obviously are going to go into preliminary assessment study, then design and engineering, and ultimately for construction in the next several years. But in the meantime, we need to find an interim solution for this enhanced network to actually be efficient as it should be. So just so you know that the big picture presented here and the transit center that we talked about in last several meetings and gain, keep the support appreciated, much needed, and basically all comes together for TARC to improve.
Only thing I'd add is the enhanced plan, it does reduce the overall level of service in the area, but even with reduced levels of service and a little bit less coverage, it has better access to jobs on balance for the workforce in the region. You see, especially in areas throughout the service area, improvements. New Albany, areas around Bashford Manor, West End, you're all seeing steps forward in terms of access to job opportunities with the redesigned network that's proposed in that.
What percentage of your budget is paratransit versus regular transit?
And
What percentage of your budget is focused towards paratransit versus, your standard public transportation? Is it two separate programs? That's
Yeah,
all
every-
wrapped up in your budget?
it's every bit of 20% and growing. And what concerns me is pre-COVID, there again, I think you're all aware transportation went down during COVID and it's slow to come back. We were doing like 40,000 scheduled trips a month. So if that gets back to that, that's another cost of 6 to 7 million to TARC. So I have to figure something out there of what Indy and Cincy's doing to get more in line. And I think what it is we've offered a premium service and not worried about the 3/4 mile. So we're working with some consultants to figure out what's going to be our best options going forward.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, where I'd like to see us is going to all JCPS high schools. If that seems to be a problem in our community, and I think we can work better with JCPS to partner with them. Part of the conversations we're hoping for is that they will purchase passes to ride TARC buses for all their high school students, and they can use them anytime. So going forward 5 years, we have to figure out how would we find 8 to 10 million. That's way better than the 30 that we originally had started talking about. Now whether that's a deeper partnership with JCPS and getting a little more monetary support from them, but that's where I see it.
What about growth as far as industry out in further reaches? Where do they stand?
I'm pretty blunt, sir, but absolutely, without no funding, there's no way for us to come out there. No way. TARC was designed to be inside the Waterson. It just was. Everything about it. And I mean, I've sat here and told you what other cities' budgets are. So if you go pull up their maps of where all they go, yeah, they can go a long way, but you're operating on way bigger budgets than we have. And, people ask me all the time, how did TARC get into this? Well, they got into this because we can go back and show budgetary wise over the last 20 years of how much money, the grants are kind of weird with the federal government because you can get a capital grant, but you can shift it to operating. And for 20 years, they have shifted, and many other across the country have shifted millions of dollars of what would have been capital infrastructure money over to operating cost. I mean, that's what we've done the last several years with the COVID dollars we had. Because we were able to get all across the country got it, but we got 140 million. Now, we had to use all that for operating costs, and the federal government did that so you wouldn't lose the bus drivers during layoffs and shortages. So I'm going to give you an example, like Richmond. So like Richmond, what they did with their COVID money, they just did free service because they'd already done a budget enhancement with a tax increase. So it was free to paratransit everybody for like the last 5 years. That's how they used their COVID money. Cincy, you go up there, they bought all new shiny stuff. But we had to use ours because we were in a financial crunch. And for what I'm told, if we would not have got the COVID money, COVID would have never happened. We'd have been talking about all this at least 6 or 7 years ago that, hey, we're out of money. So COVID actually allowed TARC to be as big as it was all the way up to this point. So back to your question, we would have to have a lot of money to do that. Yes, sir. Trust me, we've looked at so many options that they're probably sick of looking at options with the consultant of how can we go here? How do we get to Bullitt County? How do we do this? And it just, the further you go out, the more frequent you just start adding zeros to the end of it.
Yes.
Can you remind us a little bit about the transit center and what the vision for that is and what is needed?
So the vision for transit center is basically to enable enhanced network and in some good times growth network to function properly to its maximum efficiency. So that would allow multiple buses to arrive and enable transfers for passengers in all directions. That is the pulsing of the system for every 15 minutes and 30 minutes frequency. So basically the point is that the travel time is shorter, the transfers are easier, that customers have all opportunities to use this transit to the maximum extent. The system is designed with the transit center because that's how majority systems functions. For example, Indianapolis, Indigo has in the downtown really great transit center, perfect example to visit, and that's exactly what's happening. While we move forward to developing design, engineering, and construction, hopefully, we need to find space for all majority of our buses to interact with each other, and people can transfer in directions east, west, north, south, and travel where they need to. The efficiency of the system depends on it. That's why it's so critical and important, and consultants emphasize that multiple times. So in absence of having the exact location, we hypothetically work with location in the downtown. As soon as we do assessment study, we will know that, and we will go into implementation part of all this discussion.
Yeah, they really want us to focus on a downtown hub that brings everybody downtown. And that's their recommendation. It's kind of like that big white circle there it's not finished, but if we don't have solved the actual piece of property right now, what we would do is what they call an open air transfer, where we figure out I think she's working with Mike King to figure out a block area where we could go down there and still do that until we got to this next phase.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is item number 6, the MPO cost increases. See, you got that, right? Brady's got it.
Email was sent out to all of our TTCC representatives on February 5th. And a reminder email sent out on February 27th. Regarding an announcement of an opportunity to request increase in STBG funding in Kentucky, using that STBG cost increase reserve. So we received applications. These applications were discussed on March 6th with our Kentucky representatives at the MPO dedicated project review meeting and here in this room at KIPTA. And then the cost increase requests were brought forth through TCCC a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to go over those with you here today. Currently remaining in our fiscal 25 STBG cost increase reserve bucket, there is a $3.2 million number you see there still available as of today. And as a reminder, this funding is only available for fiscal year 25 phases for existing projects. First, cost increase request comes from Louisville Metro and their Neely Lake Park segment project at ID 2539. This is a TA project as a part of our updated project management guidebook. TA projects and CRP projects are allowed to request additional funding from the STBG cost increase reserve, pending confirmation from KYTC that the Office of Administration of the project will not change. TA projects, CRP projects are administered through KYTC central office, whereas STBG projects are administered through District 5. And swapping offices can slow down projects and be problematic. So we have received confirmation that there's not any initial concerns with adding funding to this project. The request is for a fiscal year 25 design cost increase of $350,000.
federal. And total amount you see there. So that's the first cost increase request for Metro for this design phase of $350,000. Second comes from KYTC, their KY 1065 project that KIPTA provided planning dollars for. I believe they were in fiscal year 23, potentially planning dollars. And that planning process is currently in motion, and KYTC has requested some additional funding to perform some additional analysis for that planning study. Tom, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add specifically about this request.
It's just a matter of, when we, scoped out the work and, time cost to it, planning studies cost more than they used to. And so that's generally been the case. So, we're just asking for a little bit of extra money to do a good planning study that will sort of rocket us into the design and hopefully construction of some good improvements.
All right, thank you. And it's just $150,000 federal for this cost increase request to a planning study in this fiscal year. And the last cost increase request I'll show you today is from KYTC. KIPTA ID 213. This is the Chenoweth Lane project. This is for fiscal year 25 construction phase. This project recently received some money through the call projects for some additional funding, but a recent cost estimate has come in just a couple weeks ago with an additional $1,120,000 federal needed for this construction phase of KY 1932. So those are the three cost increase requests: the construction phase here, the planning phase for KYTC, and the McNeely Lake Park design increase. If you total those three requests together, it gets you the $1.6 million number you see there in bullet point 2. If you take that away from our remaining fiscal 25 cost increase reserve funds available, there still is just under $1.6 million available for any future fiscal year 25 cost increase requests that may come up in the last few months as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. Any questions about any of those requests? If there isn't, then action is requested on those three cost increase requests.
Any questions?
Just as a reminder, if that 1.6 doesn't get spent, that gets rolled over into next year's.
Yeah.
So it's not a pressing matter to make sure that we get additional cost increases. It'll just be more that'll be available for everyone fiscal 26.
This is an action item, so we need a motion then to approve these three items for cost increase.
Motion.
Second. And we have second. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hey.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Brady. All right, next you have the Indiana funding determination.
I mentioned that we're getting closer to the end of the fiscal year. We still have several months for Kentucky. In Indiana, we're getting a lot closer. The kind of deadline to get funding authorizations for Indiana projects is around May 1st. So we're getting very close to that deadline. And through conversations with some of our project sponsors on projects in this fiscal year, we have a couple projects that had some funding potentially come up to be at risk. The first one is Progress Way. They have dedicated in our program $400,000 for right of way for that project. They're ready to go for that for getting that funding authorized. Unfortunately, there were some complications that made $58,000 the top number you see there, to where they weren't going to be able to authorize that for the services that they needed as a part of the right of way process. So they'll be able to authorize the other $340,000 federal dollars for right of way, but this $58,000 now, unless it's reprogrammed to something else, won't go to anything. So it's currently at risk. Then you have a project from New Albany, KIPTA ID 3136, the intersection of East Spring Street and Beharrell Ave. They have a PE phase that is also facing some complications, $252,000 federal. that is potentially at risk for fiscal year 25. And so KIPTA understood this funding was at risk, and around the same time, we received a offer from MACOG, the Michigan Area Council of Governments, to swap some of our MPO dedicated funding. So MACOG needed upwards of $400,000 if they could get it in fiscal year 25 money, and they asked all the other MPOs, hey, do you have any fiscal year 25 money? We'll swap you dollar for dollar for later fiscal years. If it would be advantageous to you. So with the $310,000 at risk from these two projects, KIPTA staff viewed it necessary in order to preserve the region's funds to perform funding swap with MACOG for KIPTA's fiscal year 25 funds swapped for a portion of fiscal 27 and 29 funds from MACOG that you can see in the parentheses there in the short paragraph. What this does is it eliminates the risk of those funds at the top from being lost to the region. So we'll get that money back that we can program to cost increases in fiscal year 27 and 29, and MACOG will get our fiscal year 25 funds today. Andy, you want to talk a little bit more about this?
Yeah, I mean, this happens amongst Indiana MPOs periodically. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of thing. It's just part and parcel of the use it or lose it money that people get in a pinch at the last minute. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of us losing money on our Indiana side. And so this is something that we thought was essential when we went ahead and pursued.
So state boundaries don't matter, I guess.
State boundaries do matter, of course, and as I've told most of y'all, the rules on either side of the river aren't perfect. The Goldilocks perfect rules would be somewhere right in between Kentucky's and Indiana's involving the carryovers. Yeah. So unfortunately, this is only Indiana accessible funds. If you're wondering where MACOG is, it's South Bend.
Yeah, sorry, it does say Michigan slash.
Yeah.
Perhaps this is an Indiana. And so this kind of agreement has been made by our MPO director, and so the action today would be kind of to ratify that agreement that has been put in place.
MACOG had a time crunch on this.
Yes. They needed to know, as they are also getting towards the end of the fiscal year, they needed to know by, I believe it was March 18th.
Yeah, that May 1st is important for our Indiana friends to know. It's really earlier than that too, with the cycle with MDOT. So we're at the end of the year right now, basically. This is the last PPC that we could make serious moves in many ways.
And so going along with that, this is kind of a little bit of a two-part action. There's the one action to ratify the agreement I just discussed, and then also, as Andy just said, we're at the very end of the fiscal year. There's also a couple other projects, namely Riverside Drive in Clarksville is having some question marks with a few of their funding right now. So in order to if money comes available in the next couple of days, potentially with that project, that may or may not happen, there may be other projects in the mix as well. KIPTA would need to make a move before April TPC in order for any of those changes to be meaningful, if they need to happen. It may not need to happen, but if they do, then we're gonna probably need to hold some kind of emergency Indiana meeting with our Indiana sponsors. So in order to get some kind of approval and work with our sponsors and NDOT on what these changes might be. So the second kind of half of this action would be to give permission to KIPTA staff to work with our Indiana sponsors and NDOT in the case that some kind of emergency funding changes are needed within the next couple of weeks here before April TPC.
Yeah, we're gonna have to make that move if needed this time next month. Before this time next month.
So those are the two actions requested. It is the ratification of the funding swap I discussed, and then TPC approval for KIPTA staff to work with our NDOT sponsors and our local LPAs to make any funding changes as necessary to preserve funding in fiscal year 20.
Okay, Brady. Do you want me to repeat all that?
Just say what Brady said.
First action we need is to ratify the funding swap.
Yes.
Okay, let's take it separately.
That'd be fine.
Is it, okay, so I'll need a motion then to ratify the funding swap, and that's with Maycog, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'll need a motion. A motion, Mr. Chapman, do I have a second? Second, any other questions or discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Now you'll have to explain the second part of this, again, I'm sorry.
Authorization for KIPTA staff to organize an emergency
Need,
meeting of our Indiana partners and to authorize that group, which will be the Indiana portion of this group, to be clear, to potentially make some more moves that might be in need of ratification next month,
If necessary.
if necessary.
Figure report right later on.
Yes.
Yes,
and we'll know that later, and then we'll have that report at the April meeting.
of course.
Okay. Okay, I need a motion to accept, to make that authorization. Mr. Chapman, do I have a second? Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Next up is item number 8, Safe Streets for All. That's a resolution to be put before us. And Spencer, you got that for us?
Yep. Alrighty, so as part of the SS4A efforts here at KIPTA, one of those 8 steps that we have to complete is to have a Vision Zero resolution. So most members of our KIPTA TPC already have local resolutions. There's only a handful that don't, and I think they're working on them right now. So this is just us adopting a Vision Zero resolution for kind of the KIPTA NPO at large. The RTC has already adopted one, and I think there's only one RTC county that's adopting it next month. Essentially essentially a Vision Zero resolution is the simple yet ambitious idea that there are no acceptable number of traffic deaths and serious injuries on our roadways. So, you know, I'm sure many of you in the room are very familiar with Vision Zero and the Vision Zero, you know, resolution requirements, but essentially we're going to say that by 2050, our goal is to have 0 serious injuries and deaths on our roads. Now, there's no consequences for not meeting that, but it's basically just committing to, hey, every project we do, we want to make sure that it improves the region's safety and works on getting, you know, decreasing serious injuries and fatalities. So that's pretty much the gist of it. Andy, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, again, this is just a blanket resolution covering anybody that doesn't get theirs in at the last minute, because we're ready to go with these draft reports soon. I'll add another note to that I'm going to mention at today's board meeting, and I'll say it here just so in case of those that aren't at the board meeting. Our consultant team over at HDR and TSW, they've got round 2 of our public outreach ready to roll. So we'll be sending that out to you guys, I think early next week, and that'll be a specific link for each of your communities. Okay. It'll take you to the survey for each of your communities. It'll show things like the top 10 segments on the high injury network, top 10 intersections, top 10 or a series of countermeasures to get the public's feedback. So that individual link we can send to you guys, we'll send to you guys for y'all to post on social media, on your website, what have you. And I think last time, like that first go around with that big public comment map, that was very, very successful, it seemed to me. Anyways, I think we got lots of comments, and it was thanks to you guys for broadcasting that out at your fiscal court meetings, your city council meetings, your metro council meetings, commissioners meetings, etc. But again, today's resolution that we're asking permission to get signed would just be a blanket resolution that's on top of your local resolutions.
Yeah, so
Very similar language.
Yeah, all of your local plans will still have your resolution in it, but like the KIPTA regional plan, it's the whole, you know, the whole region will have the KIPTA Vision Zero
Indeed
resolution.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Now I'll entertain a motion then to adopt the Vision Zero resolution for the Safe Streets for All.
So moved.
Second. Got a second? Any other questions? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next is item number 9, congestion management process update. And Aaron Monsalve,
Correct.
pretty close?
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you. Well, I got a pronunciation thing on my sheet here, so. All right. Thank you, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So keep the staff will be providing updates regarding the development of a new CMP. So the analysis we'll be presenting today will be, first of all, we'll compare the speed limit to what people are traveling on the road. Then we are going to analyze the total hours of delays experienced by vehicles during different times of the day. Then we will also assess traffic volume trends in different spots across the region. Then the last one we'll be talking about route analysis, where we compare the travel times along different routes in the region and the worst case scenario, the traffic time it would take. So the congestion management process is the federal required process for transportation management areas. The aim is to analyze, monitor traffic congestion and develop data-driven strategies to manage these congestions. In this presentation, we'll be providing you with an update on the congestion analysis metrics we keep in Kipter and we're working in a few minutes. First of all, let's talk about the speed. On the left of the screen, you will see the posted speed limits, and on the right, you will see the 85th percentile speed. So 85th percentile speed is the speed at which 85% of the cars on the road are driving. Take for instance, we have 100 cars on the road. 85 of those cars are driving at this speed or lower, while the 15 cars are driving at a higher speed. Means if you have a very high 85th percentile, we are expecting a faster moving on traffic. If you have a lower 85th percentile, it's vice versa. So this is the morning commute. The next slide is the evening commute. So in comparing the two, generally we observe that cars are driving, or commuters are actually driving way higher than the speed limit or posted speed limits. While in the evenings, we are seeing somewhat of a reduced speed, but they're still above 55 miles per hour in general. And the next metric we're going to be talking about today is the vehicle hours of delay. So the vehicle hours of delay measures the total additional time vehicles spend on the road due to congestion, incident, traffic, and other factors like rain, weather, and the likes. So this metric helps to identify bottlenecks along the road system. So this is for the morning, and this is for the evening. So this same metric, we have it for the arterials, the morning, and the evening. So staying at this metric, let's assume we have a particular road segment where we have 6,000 vehicles on this segment on a day. Then each of this vehicle, for instance, is experiencing 2 minutes delay on this 1 mile segment. Then the total number of total delay hours would be about 200 vehicle delay hours. It's a bit of mathematics inside, but it's pretty straightforward. So this measure is very important to the city engineers or county engineers to plan or to make certain decisions. Then the next metric we'll be looking at is the TTI. It's called the travel time index. So the travel time index is a congestion metric that measures how much longer a trip will take during the peak traffic conditions. For example, we have a 5-mile road where you usually on the free flow condition, you would probably spend 6 minutes. Then during the peak time, you're spending 12 minutes. Then the TTI for that corridor is 2, basically. So from there, it's pretty much self-explanatory. So on the red, we can see the red. This is for the morning graph. This is the evening. So this is the evening. So straightforward. Any point you see the red, we are expecting spending more than 20% of the usual time. Then the yellows will probably have about 10% to 20% also. So if you are probably going to spend 10 minutes on that road, so 20% would be 12 minutes and above. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. So we have it for the arterial also here. In the morning times, interesting, in the evening times. So we can see that sharp changes in the morning and the evening times. The next, we in Cape here selected so many routes across the region. So this is just a snapshot of the route just for the special purpose. But we have a lot more routes in the spreadsheet. So this just explains the times you spend in the morning traveling this particular corridor, and the time you will spend when the traffic conditions or when the traffic is worse, say during rush hours times or some certain roadway conditions that is causing this high delay. So I can't really see well, but we can just go through it and we'll see the difference in time. And I think the first one would be US 50 from Chestnut to Cherokee Parkway. On the southbound, we would probably expect to have about 2.6 minutes travel time, about 2.6 minutes. Or in the morning times, you probably spend on the southbound direction about 5.2 minutes. But once the traffic condition gets really worse, we'll be talking about 10 minutes on that same road in the morning peak. So we have this route for so many locations across the region. The next, we selected critical points across the region where we have been noticed or we have been observing this traffic trends over time. So first of all, let's go into the Ohio River crossings. So in the peak mornings for the Ohio River crossings, we can see that these two major bridges that would be I-65 and I-64 Sherman-Minton Bridge. We observed that there's been a decline since 2020, while other river crossings, including Clark, initially saw a decrease, then followed by a gradual increase. And this trend has been consistent throughout the day. This is for the morning, this is for the noon, and this is for the evening. So the evening is usually from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. So it's a similar trend. Now let's go into the counties. I'm sorry, I have just 3 counties here just for the prediction time. So right now we're talking about Bullitt County. So we have the morning trend. So this trend is similar to all counties. That's one interesting point here we should note. So there's a slight decrease in the morning in 2021, and since then there's been a gradual increase in the morning. It's there, very, very small. Now look at in the noons, there has been a gradual increase in general in the noon travels and the afternoon travels. The afternoon travel, say from like 10 p.m. to about 2 in the afternoon. Then in the evenings, quite interesting, we initially saw a sharp drop. That's in 2021 thereabouts. And since then, it has been frequently going up a little bit. It's not there yet, but it's gradually going up. So this is the trend. So this is for Bullitt County. And we observed the same trend in Jefferson. Although we selected just a few rows here, because we had a lot. So this is for the noon, same story. And this is for the evening, the same story. And the next one is for Clark County, the same story. The noon, same story. And in the evening, the sharp drop and still trying to creep up backwards. So thank you very much. Right, at this point, we have no action required. We have no action requested. For subsequent months, I will have the final documentation ready and be out here for your approval.
Any questions?
That's available on the website.
It would be, yeah. And as I told the TTCC a couple weeks ago, This type of data, congestion data, generally speaking, this is something we're seeking feedback from our LPAs. What might you like to see? Where would you like to push the envelope here in terms of seeing some data out of us? Through our streetlight subscription, we've got so many more options than we used to. The data that he's presenting today wasn't an option even 5 or 6 years ago, and so it's good stuff. And it's getting better. The quality of it's getting better.
With these timelines, is there a certain functional class that this was done on? Yes, so this was done on the interstate and arterials, just the arterials, right? Major, minor arterials? Yes. You didn't get to collector level? No, collector level.
Some of that, so I say it's getting better and better. The streetlight data, so at the lower volume, on the lower volume roads, I guess we could make the draw parallel to collector roads. Their margin of error is a little bit higher than on their arterials and certainly on the interstates. And that's true. That's always been true about traffic counts, let's say, in that regard.
Well, and this could probably help, we had that functional class meeting earlier. And we tried to debate when does a collector all of a sudden become elevated, and maybe is an arterial, so this data could help in that decision.
I think so, and hopefully it can help us make good decisions in our, through our long range plan update. We're gonna hear from Spencer in a minute about that. Things like this and safety, we'll have, with this good data, with the SS4A data, we've got as good a data we've had on both the safety and the congestion front at our fingertips at this time, and at Charles' fingertips too, at this time. So again, on the congestion front, pleased with feedback. Let us know. We'll see what we can do.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on our agenda, item number 10 is Transportation Improvement Program update. Yes.
We're gonna get right into it, but coming soon, we're gonna have the new tip. And I'm just gonna go over a few key planning details today. As many of you know, the short range plan, multi-year program of transportation projects with approved federal, state, and local funds within the region. All MPOs are required to make updates at least every 4 years. So some key details. This is not in order. I feel like this is an end slide. Pardon me. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. So the currently active tip is the fiscal year 23 to 26 tip. It's constrained to the connecting Kentuckiana 2050 MTP. We are also going to make the next tip a subset of the MTP. So for that reason, we're going to use the same scoring project, same product scoring system, and the new tip adoption is going to be added as Amendment 9 to the MTP. So we'll have a whole new tip document, but the new additions will be a part of Amendment 9. The next MTP is in the early planning stages, which Spencer will talk about next. The tip following the new tip that's coming up soon, that will be created in conjunction with the next MTP.
So 2-year tip cycle, 4-year MTP cycle.
Correct. So our project list, I won't spend too much time getting into this, but all of our existing projects with funding programmed in the years between fiscal year 25 and 28, those are all carried over into our next tip. And then anything from the call for projects that we just finished with funding approved for those years, that's going into this tip. And then we also reached out and made sure that we are getting other regionally significant projects or projects with state or local funds that are not MPO dedicated federal funds. Okay, So our tip schedule, this is what I wanted to talk about. I did make a bit of a change from the one that is included in the packet. So we met with the IAC already on March 20th, and we wrapped up our air quality activities, which are focused on just those new updates, AKA Amendment 9 to the MTP. So that is done, and everything successfully passed. KIPTA staff's working on the final touches for the draft right now, and that'll be available to the public soon. The public comment period is what we changed in this schedule. We previously had it for March 31st to start. We bumped that up to April 8th, but it is going to be a 30-day period. It'll go all the way until May 7th, and that will make it possible for us to get our comments to the TPC to you all on May 8th. And that hasn't changed. We still are looking at a May TPC request for approval and then our federal approval after that. So that's all on track. We just shifted our comment period to give us a little bit more time with this. Okay, a few more key considerations to keep in mind. There's a lot of moving parts. Amendment 8 is still pending, but it looks like everything is on track. We can probably expect that to be approved by our federal partners within the next couple of days. So that has to happen first, but it looks like we're on track. Unless it's absolutely necessary, we're not planning to make updates to the current tip. So anything coming down the pike further likely wouldn't be made until the First Amendment or administrative modification to the new tip. Yeah. That's about all I've got for you all. Unless anyone has any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Chris.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the Metropolitan Transportation Plan kickoff. And Spencer has that for us.
Pull up the flyer on the screen, Greg. All right, so, here at KIPTA, like they just talked about, every 4 years, we update our long range plan, and this is just kind of the official kickoff to the next MTP. Right now, it's still called CK 2050, Kentucky 2050. We're gonna keep the horizon year the same as part of the reason we're keeping the name the same for now, but we might change it later to make it maybe a little less confusing. I know like in the past, a couple decades ago, they would update the MTP kind of on a 2-year basis and sometimes just call it version 2, but gonna find a better way, I think, to do that. But yeah, this is just the official kickoff for the next MTP. There's on the handout, there's a preliminary schedule, just kind of some highlights. Spring 2025, just kind of looking at the bike and ped data and making sure our sidewalk gap data is updated and things like that. Any new sidewalks are on there. Pretty soon, we're gonna have a public outreach effort to kind of identify issues. So this will go out to all of you all. Haven't 100% decided if it will be just like a region-wide type of thing, or if it'll be kind of like individualized surveys for each KIPTA member. Then in the summer, some big highlights are environmental justice analysis update. There's definitely going to be some changes there, especially with a lot of the new guidance coming from Department of Transportation and FHWA. And then updating some of our demographic data as well with some of the new Census Bureau data, some of the new CTPP data, which is like census transportation data. Updating all of that goes into the model for the air quality analysis, and also updating it for our 2050 horizon year to see where population changes are going to occur, job changes, household changes, which coincides with population. So that'll be kind of in the summer, that's what we projected, and then the fall. It says active transportation plan. That's probably going to be something for like in the future if I post this MTP. been on our kind of back burner for a long time, but we haven't. I don't know, they've kind of, a lot of places did them 4 or 5 years ago, and, you know, we'd like to do one that's basically creating a plan to get people active, to use bikes, to walk, you know, just kind of helping design a plan to encourage that in the region and make or allow people to use cars be less car dependent. And then, also updating our goals, objectives, and performance measures, and that kind of coincides with Aaron Mancelli's update of the performance management plan, which will kind of make them more cohesive. You know, see which performance measures worked well, which ones didn't. What we can update and change, like how we can be more innovative with streetlight data and things like that. So that's pretty much that. You know, we'll have you guys spread the word about the surveys once we have those ready for you all, thinking sometime in either April or May, kind of somewhere in that range. You know, there's a lot of outreach going on right now with like SS4A and the TIP stuff. So we don't want to overwhelm people too much, so it might come a little bit later. You know, there's a blurb there about kind of the data analysis and forecasting and you know, some of the big pieces of data that we really want to update and make sure that we have high quality information for. Talks about project development, which includes the goal, objectives, performance measures, unmet needs, the financial plan. And then, like I said, the public outreach, there'll be some more public outreach with the goals and objectives later this year. And then, of course, the draft projects and the draft plan here in a couple of years. There's also links that Greg has updated on the bottom right, where you can subscribe to our email list, follow us on social media, and also it'll take you to the website to see our current and our former MTPs, and it'll have information on there about the future one as well. And then it just kind of talks about kind of our anticipated, you know, right now, winter 2026 adoption, which kind of means, you know, maybe from like November next year to, you know, January, February of 2027. We definitely want that to coincide with the new tip. The next tip, not the tip we're about to approve, but the tip in 2 years. That's all I have. Andy, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so.
Anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much, Spencer. All right, next item on our agenda is item number 12, KYTC shift. And Andy, you're going to present.
I will. I don't have any visuals today. But at today's board meeting, we will be showing off a tool that the KIPTA GIS team, the KIPTA MPO team, and KYTC District 5 have put forth. It's a new thing that we're giving a try this year, or this cycle for shift. That is to an effort to get the state legislature more involved earlier. Okay, they get involved eventually, always on shift, but we want them to get involved as early as possible. Critically, to get involved, let's say in the pre-sponsorship. For those that haven't been around sponsorship, you take a giant list of projects and you make not a really deep cut, but you make a cut, and those are the projects that get sponsored. The sponsored projects get a score by KYTC. That score comes back to the ads and the MPOs, and then we have an opportunity in the summertime to boost the project. So we want to get that legislative feedback early. On the TPC front, it'll be our job to get the list of sponsored projects to KYTC by May 9th. May 9th is the deadline, so expect action at next month's TPC meeting. Also, we will need to coordinate some level of effort either with the TTCC members or create get together at the county level, kind of like Chris and I have come down and talk about the functional class. And we've been around to the counties to get at the county level, which projects do you want to see sponsored? Remember, the sponsorship is not that deep of a cut. The boosting is where it really gets tough, right? We only get, I think, 20 something boosts, low 20s. I think the sponsorships are around, I want to say they're around 50. But remember, in the sponsorship phase, KYTC can sponsor a group, and it doesn't, if they're in love with the project and we're in love with the project, you don't get any bonus points for sponsoring it twice. If it's already sponsored, then we go to the next one on our theoretical list. Okay, so stay tuned for some information on that pretty soon. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about that right now. Again, we'll show as a visual at the board presentation, our online tool. And maybe we can even bring that back to the TPC next month and show that to you guys. Save some time here.
All right. Any questions on that? Thank you, Andy. Now, you have something on the TPC membership discussion?
Yeah, this is something that we tabled last month, and I think it's just a conversation starter is what I want to be clear about what this is today. This is something that's something that's probably worthy of a review every decade. Who is on this body? Who is on the TPC? What agencies, what positions? And so I want to get that conversation started. It's not going to end today. It's not going to end next month. Might not even end this year. But I want to start that conversation here today. Just as some background, there are 18 voting members on this committee. There are 8 advisory members on this committee. You can see there's from the bylaws, you can see how it's defined. It's local governments and transportation implementing agencies. We can add or remove positions on this board with a 2/3 majority. So that's something that we may or may not be interested in doing. Next slide, please. Here's the list. And just as a reminder, those of you that are on this committee, it's by position. So those elected leaders or those positions at the transportation agencies, they're on it. You or they are on it automatically, and then they appoint you or others to serve as their proxy, as alternates. And so there's the 18 positions that are on the KIPTA TPC. You can see the advisory members down toward the bottom. A couple things of note here, and I'll point it out, and I pointed this out to others in kind of private conversations. You may notice that there are two NDOTs and 1 KYTC. Why is that? Don't know for sure, but I don't mean to minimize it. What we believe to be the case is at some point in time, it was established that this TPC should be pretty close to half and half Kentucky and Indiana. And we believe that's a byproduct of that. So I just want to point that out. Next slide, please. So what do you see here? You see a rainbow colored thing. This is basically the attendance from who shows up at TPC meeting. The names have been removed to protect the innocent and the guilty. But so the blues are those those agencies that are here 75% of the meetings and higher over the last 7 or 8 years. Greens are pretty good a majority of the time, 50 to 74. Yellows a little bit less than half. Orange very infrequently, and then we have one agency that hasn't been here in the last 7 years. I don't mean to I don't want to get in too much trouble here. That agency is the Louisville Regional Airport Authority that has not been here in the last 7 years. And so when we talk about those 18 members and maybe do they need to be a part of this body anymore? If they haven't been here in 7 years, I don't know what to say about that other than I'll just kind of shut it. The orange one, who's orange? I'll call them out too because they aren't doing anything wrong. That is NDOT. Let me double check it. That is NDOT Seymour. Excuse me. That is NDOT Central Office. NDOT Seymour is very much in the blue. NDOT Central Office is in the orange. So NDOT is here virtually always. So I want to point that out. And we have some good attendance from our advisory members. If I'm not mistaken, that blue advisory member is none other than KYTC District 5. Thank you for being here and on such a regular basis. So as you can see, we've got some folks that are very much a part of the TPC, some that are on the TPC roster but aren't here very often. Next slide, please. So here's the food for thought. This is a conversation starter. There's nothing. There's no decisions to be made today. So I just want to throw these things out there. These are the things that come to my mind. Where we want to go from here is kind of up to this body. We've got a number of growing communities that have grown quite a bit over the last, let's say, 20 years. You know, TPC has not changed, certainly in my 18 years at KIPTA, and it probably goes further back than that. So we've got a lot of growth. There's some communities in Bullitt County in particular that are larger than several of the municipalities that are on the TPC, okay? And that's primarily due to growth. I would imagine that is due to their growth, that those communities through annexation or organic growth have grown to a level that are quite large. Maybe we need to set a threshold of population. I'm throwing that out there as just an option. Where would that threshold be? You can see those are the population numbers in parentheses there, if we were to do that. Most of those are in Kentucky. One of those is in southern Indiana, Sellersburg. Sellersburg has grown quite a bit, as our commissioner knows. And so, and it's growing further. So that 9,300 by the next census, I don't know, it's gonna be 10,000 or more, probably already is, perhaps anyways.
Yeah.
And so, maybe that's an important player here as we maybe keep that balance. Moving on food for thought, board membership would also be required. So it wouldn't be solely up to us as a TPC. It could be, it's up to the board's approval, whatever the TPC might suggest. It likely, not certainly, but it would likely involve payment of dues to KIPTA by the new agencies that would be on the TPC or on the board. That in Indiana and Kentucky, that's handled a little bit differently, but it would probably require that. What would the effect of this be on TTCC membership? Presumably those agencies would be on our technical committee. But what if, as is the case you see in the italics in the asterisk, what if we invited some new agencies to be part of our TTCC? That was the decision that was made maybe 10 or 12 years ago, inviting Mount Washington and Shepherdsville to be on our TTCC, and they're regular attendees and are active participants. As a reminder, all communities across the region in our 5 KIPTA counties are eligible for the funding at this table, no matter if you're on the committee or not. That's an important thing that I hope everybody knows. We had a comment earlier, I guess, on this front, dilution of votes. If we turn an 18-person committee into a 30-person committee, every one of the votes of the 18 that are on here now are diluted. We probably don't want to go too far with that for reasons like that. How do we keep that balance by the state? Do we want to keep the balance by state? Population wise, it's imbalanced, but how critical is it? I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't, but it's something to that's food for thought, like I said. And then we called them out, I guess. So what do we do about the low or the no attendance agencies? Do we encourage them? Say, hey, if you'd like to be here, we would like you to be here, but if you're not interested, then we can make you an advisory member. I think that would be a reasonable thing to do. And go forward from there. So again, this is a conversation starter. I'd be happy to have a conversation with this group right here, right now. We can bring it up next month or the month after that. We can talk candidly and privately after the meeting or at another time. We could even set up a executive committee of sorts to come up with some ideas. So I just want to start the conversation and see where that leads us. You have to answer any questions on any of the information that I have or might know about. That should conclude that report.
Raise there.
Oh, yeah.
Does the bylaws require attendance?
Doesn't require attendance, no.
Okay, I didn't
know. There's requirements in there regarding quorum. So, if we, I believe it's I think it's a particular percentage. So if we go expanding it too far, and we might walk into some quorum issues potentially. As long as we're doing it on Zoom, or since we've been doing it on Zoom, quorums have not been hard to come by, but many of y'all can remember days where it was kind of tough, when there was an event going on somewhere and several had to miss for that. It was a really pretty weather day and some people, opted out or whatever. We've had issues with quorums in the past. Maybe it's a bad weather day. It's hard to get across the bridge or something like that. So I think we have another question online. Thomas?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to, as long as I'm here, in my perspective on the balance by state question, because in my position in central office, I do work with 6 multi-state MPOs, including KIPTA, and I will say KIPTA is the only one that has that concern of having the votes balanced by state. All of the other ones, the votes tend to be somewhat consistent with the population in each state. So, not advocating one way or the other, but just wanted to throw that out as to how it's done in our other MPOs.
Yeah, if we set, let's just say hypothetically, we set a population threshold, whether it's 9,000, 10,000, 11,000. We'd get imbalanced real quick. You can see the list, and it's what, 5 Kentucky cities before 1 Indiana city.
Yeah.
Or town, I guess. So we would, we could get imbalanced in a few different ways. But yeah, I don't know how critical that is. I really don't. I mean, I'd be curious to hear, I guess in particular what our friends from Indiana care about that most, right? How critical is it? I don't know that it is. So many, for example, Brady did a Kentucky presentation about the Kentucky issues today. Then we did an Indiana presentation about the Indiana issues. And whether there's, 6 Indiana agencies at the table or 7, does that change that? Whether there's, 6 or 7 Kentucky agencies at the table or 12, does that change that? I don't know. Oh, probably changes it a little bit. Probably changes the dynamic a little bit. New voices. Maybe the new voices are a great thing to have new perspectives. Who knows?
Sure. Yes, Mr.
One of the questions, you said the effect on the TTCC. Help me out. How does the change of this board affect the TTCC?
It doesn't have to. My point there, it was meant to be, if we don't want to go so far to invite all of these cities, maybe because we would potentially do something like a TTCC membership only. That's what Mount Washington and Shepherdsville have had since about middle part of last decade. Sure. Because we did not change the TPC membership at that time. I think it's the same conversation. Wow, these places are growing. And so would we add those agencies? Would we just say, would we, if we have got the list of populations, would we go way down the list for TTCC? Is there any harm in that? Getting a whole bunch of these people in the room, getting the information firsthand at KIPTA about federal funding, maybe that would be a healthy thing. It would not impact this TPC. Maybe there'd be better guidance that the TTCC could be providing because it was a casting a wider net. You'd probably get Prospect or Anchorage or I don't know the next one in Indiana, probably Georgetown or Borden, I guess would probably be the next ones in Indiana. So how far down do we want to go? That's what I meant by that. I don't think it has a direct impact on our TPCC membership. I think likely any agency that had TPC membership would automatically have TTCC membership at that point.
Yeah. Yes.
I was gonna say, I appreciate you bringing this to the board. I think it's a worthy conversation to have, much like you, I don't know what the answers are. I think it's difficult to see, we have such growing communities that don't have a place here or a voice. And I think you're asking the right questions around participants and what would be required. So I mean, I'd like us to continue the conversation.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'd be real interested in what Little Metro has to say, at the highest levels even, and say, hey,
okay, whose
votes diluted the most? I don't know. Speak the obvious. It's Little Metro's. That's just a fact of the matter.
Okay. Any other questions?
Andy.
Okay.
Somebody does.
You got a question online there?
Looks like it's Kevin, I think.
Okay.
I'm a big proponent of participation, and maybe we look at some way that without participation at meetings, be it mundane that you may not have something on the agenda or not, you still need to be there for buy-in in order to be able to receive funding. I mean, you can't just come to the table with your hand out when you need it, but not be there at the rest of the time.
I see commissioners head nodding. I see a lot of others, and KIPTA staff couldn't agree with that more. We could not agree with that more, because that can be frustrating at times.
So to that end, I think maybe attendance has to be measured.
Okay. At that, I mean, at a minimum, we could show that where we scrub the names, we could point it out, and maybe that's what we'll do. We'll send out something to each agency and say, hey, remember that attendance thing Andy showed on board? Here's where you guys were, just to let you know.
Yeah.
Good and bad. To the people that have perfect attendance and those that don't. And again, that's just conversation starter with those individual agencies potentially. So.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? If not, we'll proceed right on to the MPO director's report.
I don't have anything. The thing I wanted to reiterate earlier, what I already said, remember that SS4A survey, expect that probably Monday or Tuesday of next week. It's likely to come directly from our consulting team. That concludes that report.
Okay. Any other business?
Great.
Yes.
Just a quick announcement, fiscal year 26 call for studies application period ends on April 1st. So if you're planning on submitting anything for that, Tuesday, I believe is the last day.
Tuesday. Any other questions? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Chapman, a second? All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all very, very much for being here.
Pretty good.
You too, sir. Nice to meet you. And hopefully you'll.